The immortal king of San Aurelia raised his glass to take a sip, only to find a trembling, handwritten note beneath it. Don't drink it. The drink is poisoned. One warning, one waitress, one betrayal that could burn the entire city down. Welcome back, my beautiful family and friends. If you're hooked in and you're ready to enjoy this story, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow I will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one, and you don't want to miss it. Now, let us begin. The city lights shimmered like molten gold across the rooftop of the radiant crown, reflecting off polished glass panels and the designer gowns of San Aurelia's elite. Music thumped softly beneath the sound of laughter, the clinking of crystal, and the hum of money being quietly moved around the room. The annual Hale Corp Charity Gala was always extravagant, but tonight was something else. It felt like the entire skyline had dressed up to watch, and Mira Santos felt like she was drowning in it. Her black curls were pulled into a tight bun, her serving uniform pressed so stiffly it didn't feel like fabric so much as a cage. The tray she carried hovered above her palm with the stability of someone who'd done this job too long, even when her hands threatened to shake. She couldn't afford to let them shake now. Not with the poisoned drink balanced on top. Not with Grant Hale somewhere on this roof, unaware that death was sitting quietly on her tray. Her throat tightened as she peeked across the room. There he stood, Grant Hale himself, the man everyone in the city whispered about, but few truly understood. Tall, sharply dressed, white blonde hair brushed back with an effortless confidence no influencer could fake. His presence alone commanded attention, not with volume, but with stillness, like he was the only person in San Aurelia who never needed to rush. The only person time refused to touch. The immortal king. The rumors always made Mira roll her eyes when people repeated them. Immortal, never bleeds, never ages, never loses. A man like that couldn't possibly exist. And yet, one look at him now, illuminated by city lights, as if they bent toward him instead of the other way around, made her question whether everything she'd ever brushed off was true. Immortal or not, someone wanted him dead tonight. Her stomach twisted as her gaze flicked toward Pamela Sterling, Grant's stunning, camera-perfect fiancée, standing near the bar with her diamond-lit smile. Pamela didn't look like someone capable of murder, but Mira had heard everything. The whisper exchange with the strange man in the tailored charcoal suit, the quiet slide of the vial, the bartender following her instructions. That'll kill even him, the man had said. Even him. Mira swallowed hard. Most people in San Aurelia didn't know that vampires walked among them, much less ruled them. But Mira wasn't most people. Her younger brother worked at Hale Corp, and after seeing Grant Hale step in personally to protect him during a downsizing, she'd begun paying attention, listening more carefully, noticing little things, patterns, stories, oddities. She'd come to believe vampires might be real, even if she never fully accepted it. She accepted it now. The vial made it real. Pamela's cold determination made it real. And the fact that Mira was walking across the rooftop with a poisoned drink made it impossible to ignore. A bead of sweat formed at the base of her spine as she wove through the crowd. "Don't drop it. Don't let it spill. Don't even breathe wrong," she whispered inside her head. The tray felt heavier with every step. Grant Hale stood only 20 feet away now. She had a plan. A risk-filled, reckless plan. Slip a note beneath the glass. Warn him. Walk away before anyone saw. And pray. Her fingers grazed the folded slip of paper she'd tucked beneath her palm. The words she'd scribbled, her desperate warning, burned through her like fire. She wasn't a hero. She wasn't brave. She was just human. A black girl from a working-class neighborhood doing her best to survive college, to help her family, to keep her brother safe. But her brother admired Grant Hale, and Grant had saved her brother's job. She couldn't ignore that. She couldn't let the city lose a man who kept whole families afloat, including hers. Taking a breath, Mira forced herself to keep walking, heels clicking softly on the rooftop floor. Donors, elites, politicians, celebrities, everyone glided around her like this was a movie, and she was an extra who wasn't supposed to exist. Just another server in black and white. Invisible. Usually being invisible meant tips were low. Tonight, it meant survival. She reached Grant Hale. His gaze shifted toward her before she even stopped walking, as if he sensed her presence. His ice blue eyes cut through her with a sharpness she'd never experienced before. Not cruel, not warm, just unbearably aware. "Your drink, sir," she whispered, lowering her head. Her hand moved in a practiced motion. Glass down, note tucked underneath, tray lifted away. She didn't look up. She didn't breathe. She turned and walked. Fast enough to get distance, slow enough not to draw attention. Behind her, Grant Hale's fingers brushed the base of the glass. He paused. Mira didn't have to look to know he'd found the note. She felt the shift in the air. The silence that wasn't real silence, but a stillness, as if the city had inhaled and forgotten to exhale. She ducked behind a decorative pillar and forced herself to blend in with the other staff, heart pounding so hard she thought she might faint. Oh God, what did she just do? Grant Hale stood motionless, reading the note, the wind catching the edge of his suit jacket. Pamela, across the room, watched him with a smile that sparkled like diamonds but didn't reach her eyes. He looked up, straight at Mira. Her breath vanished, not because he looked angry, but because he looked certain. Certain she'd written the note, certain she wasn't lying, and certain that someone in this room wanted him dead. Grant lifted the glass slowly, and Mira almost screamed. But instead of drinking, he raised it slightly, observing the liquid inside with a predator's caution. Then, without breaking eye contact with her, he gently set the glass back down. He knew. He understood. And she had just placed herself in the center of a war she never asked to be part of. A waiter brushed past her and whispered, "You okay? You look like you saw a ghost." Mira swallowed. "I think I just made one." Grant Hale didn't move toward Pamela. He didn't call for guards. He simply walked, quietly, powerfully, through the crowd until he reached the balcony railing overlooking the city. The wind caught his coat, tossing it lightly as neon reflected on the glass surface of the building below. Mira forced herself back into motion. She had to keep working. Act normal. Don't panic. Normal was impossible. Every time she moved, she felt Grant's gaze flicker in her direction. Sharp, assessing, calculating. He wasn't afraid. He wasn't shaken. He was curious. And Mira realized something terrifying. She hadn't just saved his life. She had gotten his attention. Not a single person in San Aurelia, a human person, wanted the attention of the vampire king. She prayed he wouldn't come find her. She prayed even harder that he would. Pamela Sterling crossed the room with the grace of someone who believed the world was hers to command. Blonde curls perfectly sculpted, dress glittering like liquid gold, posture immaculate. She approached Grant from behind, slipping her hand onto his arm. "Darling," she purred. "Everything all right?" Grant did not turn to her. "Perfectly." Pamela's smile flickered, short, subtle, but there. Mira saw it from halfway across the rooftop. "Oh, good," Pamela said sweetly. "I'd hate for anything to spoil tonight." Her eyes glided over the untouched drink resting near the railing. Then, for the briefest second, they locked onto Mira. Cold, careful, calculating. Mira pretended to be adjusting a napkin on a table. Pamela's smile didn't return. Grant finally turned, brushing a thumb over Pamela's cheek. His expression was unreadable, a mask he'd likely worn longer than Myra's entire family had been alive. "Nothing will spoil tonight," he murmured. "Of that, I'm certain." But there was an undertone in his voice, subtle, dark, dangerous, that made Pamela stiffen slightly. Myra's heart hammered. She didn't know what frightened her more. Pamela's quiet malice, or Grant's quiet control. The rooftop shimmered with luxury and laughter, but the world beneath it was shifting. Something ancient and powerful was waking, because Mira Santos, a waitress with nothing but her conscience, had slipped a note under a glass. Should she have stayed silent? Should she have walked away? A voice whispered inside her. Would you let someone die because it was safer for you? She didn't want to know the answer. If you were in Myra's position, seeing the poison, knowing the danger, would you have warned Grant Hale or stayed out of it? Leave your thoughts below. I'm curious what choice you'd make. Grant Hale excused himself from Pamela and walked directly toward Mira. Her knees almost buckled. He stopped in front of her, towering but calm, his eyes locked on hers with a clarity that felt like sunlight cutting through smoke. "Walk with me," he said. Not a request, a command, the kind that left no room for fear but still caused it. Myra's voice stumbled out. "Yes, sir, I'm working. I'm not asking you to leave your job," he said softly. "Just your station." He stepped aside, waiting. Everyone near them sensed his shift and instinctively moved away. Grant Hale rarely addressed staff, never singled anyone out. Mira felt dozens of eyes, including Pamela's, watching. Her pulse pounded. She nodded and walked with the man she had just saved from a poison that should never have existed, and from a woman who wanted to know if immortality had limits. She didn't know it yet, but nothing in her life would ever be simple again. Mid-chapter pause. If this world of vampires and secrets has you hooked, like, subscribe, and tell me your theories in the comments. Have questions? Ask them. I might answer them in the next chapter. The rooftop shimmered with city lights as Grant Hale rose from his seat, the note still pressed between his fingers. Myra's handwriting, small, rushed, terrified, burned into his mind. "Don't drink it. The drink is poisoned." The scent of the poison clung to the rim of the glass, a bitter, metallic tinge trying to hide beneath citrus and champagne. Whoever mixed it knew very little about subtlety. But what unsettled him wasn't the poison. It was the handwriting. It trembled, the only kind of fear that made humans war monsters. Mira had stepped back toward the bar, hands behind her apron, gaze fixed on anything except him. She looked like she was bracing herself for the moment a vampire king could decide she'd seen too much. He took one step toward her. She flinched. "Look at me," Grant said, voice low, the command sliding from him like velvet with steel beneath. Mira lifted her eyes, wide, frightened but honest. "You wrote this?" he asked. "Yes." Her voice cracked. "I didn't know what else to do." "Who poisoned it?" She looked away instantly. Grant could hear the spike in her pulse, the way her breath shook. Humans were terrible liars. But she wasn't lying. She was afraid of telling the truth. "I don't want to get killed," she whispered. "You won't," Grant replied. "Not by me." He didn't promise anyone else. Myra's throat bobbed. It was the brunette, the one in the gold dress. Grant's jaw tightened. Pamela, his fiancée, the woman he publicly announced, less than an hour ago, he intended to marry before the year ended. The betrayal hit him with an unexpected, almost animalistic clarity. Pamela. Poison. Immortality test. Of course. He should have seen it sooner. Pamela loved power more than she ever loved him. She loved the idea of being queen, not the reality of standing beside a creature she didn't understand. Grant tucked the note into his suit pocket. "Leave the rooftop," he told Mira. "Take the back stairs. If anyone asks where you are, tell them the king dismissed you." Mira blinked. "But my shift." "You just saved my life," Grant said. "You're done for the night." She hesitated, then nodded and hurried off, disappearing into the glow of the staff hallway. Grant inhaled slowly, letting the city's wind brush across his face. Pamela thought a poison could kill him. He almost laughed. He didn't fear the attempt. He feared what trying said about her. The music swelled behind him. Champagne glasses clinked, and the wealthy elite of San Aurelia continued celebrating without the slightest idea their king had been moments away from assassination. Grant turned back toward the gala and scanned the crowd. Pamela stood exactly where he expected, near the balcony rail, bathed in golden light, smiling for a photographer. She looked perfect, polished, untouchable. But when her eyes caught his across the crowd, her smile faltered, just for a heartbeat. Grant moved toward her, the crowd parting instinctively. They knew his presence without knowing why. Pamela placed a hand over her heart. "Darling, you disappeared. Is everything all right?" He watched her carefully. She didn't smell guilty. She smelled prepared, dangerously prepared. Grant smiled, slow, polite, impossible to read. "Yes, Pamela," he said softly. "Everything is perfectly fine." But in his pocket, the note burned like a truth he could not ignore. Tonight, he decided, he would not confront her. Not yet. He needed to understand how far she was willing to go. and why she was suddenly so desperate to know whether the king could truly die. San Aurelia seldom slept, but tonight the city felt like it was holding its breath. The radiant crown was still glittering behind them, music pulsing, guests laughing, Pamela smiling like a serpent in diamonds. But here, in the upper levels of Hale Corp Tower, midnight silence swallowed everything. Grant Hale pushed the elevator doors open and stepped into his private suite, a long, glass-walled observatory overlooking the entire coast. The ocean shimmered below, black and restless. Mira stood just inside the threshold, her hands clasped, her expression nervous. She'd never been inside the tower before, much less the king's private domain. She wasn't sure whether she should apologize or run. "You're safe here," Grant said as he walked past her, shrugging off his suit jacket. "You warned me. That matters." She nodded slowly, though her heartbeat still thudded in her ears. "I don't understand," she finally said. "Why would someone poison you? And why tonight?" Grant paused, his profile sharp against the moonlit window. "Because someone close to me has decided my immortality is inconvenient." He didn't say Pamela's name. He didn't need to. Mira inhaled sharply. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to overhear anything. You saved my life." He turned fully toward her. No apology required. Her chest tightened. Something about the way he said it, calm, controlled, but with tension beneath, made her realize he wasn't just grateful. He was shaken. For the first time in a century, he had been vulnerable. He moved toward a biometric cabinet built into the wall. When it opened, Mira caught the gleam of crystal vials, old metal blades, and artifacts she didn't understand. Grant pulled out a syringe filled with dark, viscous fluid. "Is that medicine?" Mira asked. "Insurance," he said quietly. "The poison hasn't taken effect yet. But if it's truly engineered to disrupt immortality, then I need to know." She frowned. "Know what?" He uncapped the syringe. "If I'm dying?" Myra's breath clutched. "Wait, what? Shouldn't you go to a doctor? A healer? Anyone but. Human medicine can't counter supernatural toxins. And vampire healers answer to the council. Until I know who else is involved, I trust no one." He slid the needle into his arm. Mira stepped forward. "Are you sure?" Grant pushed the plunger. A shudder racked through him. He staggered backward, one hand gripping the counter, his jaw tightening. His skin flushed red, then pale, then red again. Veins darkened under the surface like ink spreading through water. Mira lunged forward. "Grant!" He dropped to one knee. For the first time since the night they met, Mira saw something impossible, something no myth or rumor had ever claimed. A drop of blood slid from Grant Hale's nose. He wiped it, stared at it, and whispered, "I can bleed." The words, soft as they were, shook the room. Mira knelt beside him, steadying his shoulders. "Tell me what to do." He exhaled sharply. "Help me stand." She hooked her arm under his, helping him upright. His body leaned heavy against her, far heavier than any human man his size. He pressed a hand to the glass window to steady himself. His reflection looked wrong, pale, strained, eyes dimming. "The poison," Grant managed. "It's working, but you took the antidote." It wasn't an antidote. His breath trembled. It was a catalyst. A what? It activates the toxin, accelerates it. His fingers curled inward, claws threatening to appear. "If I'm immortal, it will burn through my system and leave no trace. If I'm not." He didn't finish. He didn't have to. Mira swallowed hard. "Grant, talk to me. What happens next?" The Vampire King, once untouchable, unbreakable, legendary, looked at her with the rawest expression she'd ever seen. "I think I'm dying." She gripped his arm. No, you're not. We won't let that happen." He huffed a humorless laugh. "You are a human waitress, Mira Santos. You aren't meant to be involved in this world." "Too late," she said firmly. "I'm already involved. And I'm not letting you fall over and die in front of me." His gaze softened. "You're brave." "I'm scared as hell," she corrected. "But I'm not leaving." His chest rose with a deep, uneven breath. "Then listen carefully," he said. "If Pamela did this, she didn't work alone. And if the council suspects weakness, they'll come for me." She stiffened. "Come for you?" As in, airship, power, territory, he said. Vampire politics have no mercy. So what do you need from me? Grant lifted his head, searching her face. I need you to stay by my side, at least until the toxin runs its course. I need someone I can trust to keep me standing. You can. I'm here. Something shifted then, something subtle, something quiet. The way he looked at her changed. His guard lowered. Not all the way, but enough to show her the truth behind his eyes. Fear, hope, loneliness, centuries of isolation cracking open at the edges. Thank you, he whispered, and Mira suddenly understood that no one, in decades or maybe longer, had said the same words to him. Not genuinely, not without wanting something in return. But then, a chime echoed through the suite. Ding! The elevator had returned. Grant tensed. Mira stepped back instinctively. His senses multiplied when he was weakened. He could smell emotions, intent, even heartbeats. So when the doors slid open and Pamela Sterling stepped out in her glittering silver gown, Grant already knew exactly who his enemy was. Grant, she purred sweetly, you rushed out of the gala before our toast. I thought I'd bring it to you. She held another drink in her manicured hand. Mira stiffened. Pamela's smile froze when she saw the girl. Oh, she said coolly. I see you're not alone. Grant straightened. Barely, but enough. Pamela, he said, you shouldn't be here, but I had to check on you. Everyone said you weren't feeling well. Her eyes sparkled with false concern. Are you all right, darling? Mira felt the tension coil through Grant's frame. He answered simply, no. Pamela's expression twitched, brief, barely noticeable, but Mira saw it. Guilt? Rage? Satisfaction? Then her gaze slid to the blood still dried beneath Grant's nose. Oh, she whispered slowly. So it worked? Mira stepped forward. You poisoned him. Pamela sighed. Such a dramatic word. I didn't poison him. I corrected the imbalance of power in our relationship. You tried to kill him. Pamela turned to Mira, smiling as if they were discussing lipstick shades. Sweetheart, men like Grant don't die. That's the fun of it. I just needed to know whether his immortality was real or a myth he let the world believe. And if it was real, Mira shot back. Then he'd be fine. And if it wasn't, Pamela shrugged lightly. Then this city would get a new king, or council, or whatever comes next. You would collapse the entire supernatural order just because you're jealous of aging. Pamela's lips curled. Jealous? No. Practical. Grant stepped between them, swaying slightly. Pamela, why? Her breath hitched almost imperceptibly. Because I loved you. That's not love, he said quietly. No, she corrected, voice cracking. That's the part that came before. But loving you means standing beside a God who will watch me wither. Loving you means being left behind. Grant's jaw clenched. Mira saw it, the grief deep in his expression. Even after everything, he hadn't wanted this. He had once cared for Pamela, even if she now stood against him. But the woman in front of him was gone. Ambition had replaced affection. Fear had calcified into cruelty. Pamela's gaze sharpened. But you bleeding? That changes everything. I just need to make sure you finish the transformation. She lifted the second drink. Mira moved faster. Before Grant could react, Mira grabbed a decorative marble vase from the table and hurled it. It shattered the glass in Pamela's hand and sent shards spraying across the floor. Pamela froze. Her eyes went cold. You little. But she didn't finish. Grant had moved. Weak or not, dying or not, he still moved with supernatural speed. He stepped between Mira and Pamela, his voice low, lethal. If you touch her, he said, you'll regret it more than anything you've ever done. Pamela breathed out a laugh. You're protecting a waitress now? My God, the poison hit faster than I thought. Grant stepped closer. You will leave, he ordered. Now, I'm giving you that mercy because I once loved who you used to be. And what if I don't leave? She whispered. He stared at her, tired, hurting, fading, but every word rang with finality. Then I won't show mercy again. Pamela swallowed. Her eyes darted once to Grant's trembling hand, to Mira at his back, to the broken glass, and finally to the blood staining his collar. She realized something. The poison had not killed him. Not yet. But he was no longer invincible, which meant neither was she. jaw trembled once. Then she spun sharply, heels clicking like gunshots, and disappeared into the elevator. Ding! The doors closed behind her. Silence expanded into the room like a living thing. Mira exhaled shakily. Grant, are you okay? No. He slumped against the counter. But I will be. She moved to support him again. His voice softened. You shouldn't have thrown that vase. Sorry, she murmured. Next time, I'll aim for her face. Grant blinked, then laughed. Genuinely. It was brief but grounding. A fracture of light in all the darkness. The toxin still burned, but the catalyst had begun to stabilize. His immortality wasn't gone. It was wounded but restoring itself. Mira helped him into a chair. He let her. His eyes met hers. Mira, he said, tonight you saved me twice. You would have saved me, she whispered. Maybe this is just balance. No, his voice lowered. This was loyalty, and loyalty deserves to be honored. She looked at him, really looked. And for the first time, she didn't see the immortal king or the ruthless CEO. She saw a man who had stood alone too long, a man no longer untouchable. Grant held her gaze, his lips parting as if to say something more, something deeper. But then he slumped forward, exhaustion crashing over him. Mira caught him before he fell. Grant, his breathing steadied. Not dying, not collapsing, just weakened, healing. She sat beside him, keeping his head against her shoulder until the shaking stopped. He whispered, almost inaudibly, "Stay, please." "I'm here," she said softly. "I'm not going anywhere." Outside, the city lights shimmered over the ocean. Inside, the immortal king rested for the first time in a century, guarded by the woman who had saved his life. And in the shadows of San Aurelia, something vast began to shift. The king had bled, and now the city would never be the same. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.